It's time to focus on the slider navigation. Since the buttons are being displayed on top of this image placeholder, what we want to do is have the container with a position property set to relative. Then what we want to do is set and create a new paragraph element to include these buttons, and we'll set its position property to absolute, removing it from normal document flow, giving us the ability to position it on top of this image placeholder or thumbnail or whatever you want to call it. So let's come back to our HTML editors, and what we want to do is write a fairly specific selector. So I'm going to come up here towards the middle section of my hello selectors and add a new one. I'll go ahead and type in hello div.slider, and what we want to do here is just set the position to relative. So I'm going to go ahead and type in position, and then I'll choose relative. So let's not worry about getting that new paragraph rule in place just yet. Let's go ahead and create that content within the HTML first. Let's go ahead and save the style.css file and come over to index.html. What we want to do here is create a new paragraph so we can position the buttons. And that's going to happen underneath our paragraph holding the actual image. So we'll go ahead and open up a paragraph element. I'll go ahead and close it off. Now inside this paragraph element, the first thing that we want to do is assign a class attribute to it. And the class attribute is going to be navigation. Well, that's the class that we're going to be using. Then inside the paragraph element, we want to open up two anchor elements. So we'll go ahead and set the href attribute to our pound sign placeholder. And we'll do the same thing for the title attribute. After doing that, we're going to assign that same class btn. So as you can imagine, these buttons by default will appear just like the three custom buttons we created in the previous movie. And we don't want them to appear that way, but I'll show you what you can do to override some of the settings associated with this button class. So I'm going to go ahead and close off the anchor tag, and inside the anchor tag, we're going to go ahead and type the word previous for previous. And then I'm going to go ahead and select this and copy it, and then paste it underneath and change previous to next. So go ahead and save the HTML file. What we want to do now is look at how we can override some of the elements associated with that button class. For example, we want the background to be white. We don't necessarily want that image background. So what we can do is overwrite the background position for that class. And there's a couple other things that we need to do. So let's go ahead and take a look at how we can override some of those things that are happening within this button class. So let's come back to style.css. Inside of style.css right down here, I'm going to create a new selector, which is going to be hello div.slider p.navigation, and then we have a.btn. So this is referencing essentially this button class, but only when it falls in line within this specific hierarchy. So what we want to do here is set the border color to something different. So I'm going to go ahead and type in border color, and we're going to set it to a hex value, which is going to be B9, B9, B9. After doing that, we want to set the background color to white. So go ahead and choose background color, and you can either type in white or just use the hex code of FFF. After doing that, we want to set the background position. Now remember, the background position will control where that image appears. We're going to type in -100 pixels by -100 pixels. Now if you remember that image file that we're using, it really is only 2 pixels wide. So by setting it to an extreme value like this, we ensure that we'll see our white background and not the actual image. Then we want to set new padding attributes, and we want to go ahead and set this to 3 pixels and 6 pixels. After doing that, we want to set the display to block. So I'll go ahead and type that in. And we want to float this to the left. So go ahead and float that. And finally, what we want to do is reset some of these margin values. I'm going to go ahead and type in 0, 5 pixels, 0, and 0. So by doing that, we're essentially stripping out some of that formatting that we previously established with this btn class. So if we go ahead and save the style.css file and come back to index.html, we can take a look at this inside of Chrome, and we should see the previous and next buttons appearing down here in the bottom left-hand corner, which is exactly what we want right now. In the next movie, what we're going to do is take a look at how we can get our images to appear in here, the image being these arrows that you see inside of Photoshop. And we also, obviously, want to take a look at how we can position those buttons up here in the top right-hand corner.